Good morning. It's your boy Chili Chill. Welcome back for another episode of How to Catch Striped Bass. I want to thank you guys for tuning in and checking my videos out. Today, I'm going to show you guys how to read the surf for striped bass fishing. Now, I don't have any fancy drone or aerial views to show you, nor do I want to get super educational on this, so it's just going to be quick and easy, quick and simple, just what to look for, how to start reading the surf, and what kind of structure is out there. For my gear today, I got my Shimano Ocea plugger light concept. This is my 8'6" medium light model, and I got it paired with my Shimano Vanquish C4000 XG. This has a 30-pound Power Pro Super Slick version 2. I am using a leader today. This is a 20-pound or 25-pound fluorocarbon tied with an FG knot. And today I'm throwing bucktails. Got me a 1.5 ounce SPRO bucktail here with the curly tail grub on the backside. Conditions today is overcast skies, not too windy, maybe about 5 miles per hour. The wave energy is pretty strong though. It's a pretty strong surf. It's an incoming tide right now. It's about an hour before high tide. Very drizzly out here. All right, the first thing I look for when I walk up on the beach is the very first wave way out there. That's the first breaker. So you want to go ahead and stand there on the beach and just take a look, see if you can see that first wave. So once you find that first wave forming, that's when you know that there's a sandbar out there. You see there's a sandbar over there. It's a lot harder to read the surf when you have a strong surf energy going on. So okay, we got a nice flat part now. Let's see. Okay, the wave is forming out there, not the whitewash, right behind that one. So there's a sandbar right there. You see it's getting lifted up right now, dropping, and you can see it's just kind of rolling in. So I know that there's a deep part right here, right in front of me. See how it's just rolling in still rolling in, and right there it crests. So there's a deep trough right here in front of me. Now usually, almost always, where the first sandbar is where the first breaker is. When that wave drops, I mean, it's common sense, right? When that big wave energy drops down, it's going to dig a hole. So basically out there after the first sandbar is going to be your trough. That's going to be your very first trough. Now most beaches, they have 2 troughs instead of just one. There's a difference between short beaches and long beaches. And what I mean by that is how far the first sandbar or the first breaker is to where you're standing on the beach. Some beaches, like Ocean Beach for example, is a very long beach, so sometimes you could be standing on the shore break and look out there to the abyss, and you can see that the first wave is way out there. So that first trough is normally unreachable and unfishable for most beaches. So the trough that you want to try to target is going to be your second trough. So after you follow that first wave that forms out there on the first sandbar, you want to just go ahead and follow it in. So right now it's just rolling in, as you can see. So that means that there's a trough right there. And it's still rolling, but right here, you see this? It's getting lifted up right there, just a little bit. But it's getting lifted up. So there's another sandbar right here. And then it just kind of rolls in. So there's another trough right here. So this is the second trough. Usually the second trough is right in front of you. So that's why I tell people all the time, you don't need to cast far. Most of the fish that I catch in the surf are like literally right in front of me, maybe 20 feet. So it's not about casting far, it's about getting your bait in the right zone and making sure that your bait is swimming and doing what it's supposed to. Let's go ahead and get a first cast. Make sure you time your cast behind the wave. Sometimes you gotta wait about 30 seconds to a minute. Once you see the perfect conditions to throw it, that's when you want to go ahead and toss it out there. Now usually when you're fishing and you spot the first breaker and the first trough, the second breaker and the second trough, those are your main structures on the beach. But now let's talk about some of the other structures. So usually in a trough, you have what they call a cut. A cut is when the waves are crashing onto the sand, and you know, the sand won't evenly disperse. So in some areas the sand will be higher, some areas the sand will be lower. In those lower zones, those are cuts. That's where the water, the current is kind of digging out the beach. So it starts making a cut in between the troughs. So from the first breaker to the trough, there might be a cut that goes into the second breaker or back out to the deep. So to spot a cut, normally you follow a wave, and if you see an abrupt calm in the wave, then you know that you found a cut. So like right over here, there's a wave forming, right? But you see right here in the middle, it started to calm down a little bit. So there's a little bit of a cut right here. So a cut is like what a fish uses to swim in and out the troughs. So a fish might be out in the deep and they'll find a cut in the sandbar, swim into the first trough, and then from the first trough to the second sandbar, they might find another opening or entrance and go into the second trough. So that's what cuts are. After you find the second sandbar and you find the second trough, the next thing to look for is a hole. So in that trough, when you see the wave busting in the second trough and it's rolling in, if it just rolls in calmly, then you found a deeper part of the beach, which is usually called a hole or a dip. Now the difference between a dip and a hole is usually a dip. If you look down the side of a beach, like right now I'll show you the side, you see how the waves are coming in like an M? So like over there, it's coming in like this. Right here we're in a dip. Right here is like an M. So normally in these parts where the water reaches furthest up the beach, you'll find a hole, or a dip actually. You'll find a dip. A dip is just where it's just a little bit deeper right in front of you, right off the beach. Normally if you go at low tide, you can spot dips very easily. But a hole is a little bit harder to spot because a hole is normally submerged all the time. One way to look for a hole is to look at your trough and see if the wave lifts up on one side and on the other side. If that happens, then you found yourself a deep hole and you want to fish that hole. And then the next structure that you want to look for, or you can look for, is a rip current. Rip currents are kind of easy to spot if you walk down the whole beach. Normally wherever the dirtiest foam is, like you'll see that foam that has like a yellowish greenish tint to it. Like I see it right over there. And if you follow that foam is usually going out to a rip current. I don't know if the waves create that yellowish foam, but once that yellowish foam pops up, it only goes out the rip current. I don't know why, but I've tested the theory lots of times. If you can find that yellow foam, then you found a rip current. But anyway, there is a rip current right there. And you do want to fish rip currents too. Rip currents are also like entrances and exits for the fish to get in and out the troughs. They'll also chill right next to the rip current, waiting for bait fish to get sucked out by it, because the bait fish can't, they can't swim through that rip current. So once the bait fish gets swept out by that rip current, a striper will come out from the side and just hit it out of the trough. The best way to think about it is like your sandbars are like the walls of the freeway, and the trough is like the actual roadway, the actual freeway. And then cuts and rips, those are your entrances and exits off the freeway. If that makes sense to you guys. That's like the best way I can put it. Usually you can find them on the sides of beaches. I don't know why, but you see this beach has a cliff right here, and way on the other side over there, there's a cliff. Normally if you fish next to the cliff, there's a hole somewhere right here, because all that water coming in the middle of the beach has to wash out. So once it washes out, it creates a hole on the side of these cliffs. So if you're ever fishing a beach that has cliffs on both sides and no other beach wrapping around it, you want to fish on the left side or the right side of that, okay? I know it's hard to explain, but once you get out enough times on the beach and you start looking at the water more and more, it gets more and more easier. It gets more easier to start identifying holes. And just because you did identify a deeper part of the beach, or a trough or a hole or a rip or a cut or a dip, doesn't mean that there's always fish in there. So you always have to keep moving and keep trying and try your luck. You just never know. Okay, so say we're on the beach. This is the beach right here. This is me. And this is the beach right here. So say you identified your first sandbar. Your first sandbar is going to be out here. Then the waves are crashing. This is going to be your trough right here. And then once you identify your second sandbar, this is going to be your second trough right here. Now a cut is going to be something like this or like this, so the fish can swim in and out the troughs. So if you can imagine, this is your first sandbar right here, and then it goes into a trough, to your second sandbar, into your second trough, and then the beach is right here. So the waves will be forming right here, just like this. And your fish are going to be hanging out in this trough in the deeper water. So normally if you're standing right here on the beach, depending if it's a short beach or a long beach, you can't really reach this trough. At low tide you can though, but you're going to try to target this area right here. This is the area you want to try to target the most. Now that you kind of have an idea what to look for on the beach, hopefully you can get out there and catch yourself a California striped bass. But I only got about an hour to fish, so I need to get out there and start casting. So let me get to it, guys. Also too, if you're plugging and you come up to the beach and as you're casting, your plug is getting swept way to the left or way to the right, like there's, you know, just a sweeping current going on, don't fish that, okay? Follow that current until it goes out or until it's, you know, calms down. Then you want to fish that area. But don't fish an area on the beach where the current is super sweeping to the left or super sweeping your lure to the right. If you find that, just follow that current until it stops moving as fast and fish that area. More than likely you'll find a rip or a cut doing that anyway. So follow that current and it'll take you to a rip or a cut. All right guys, I've been casting for about 45 minutes. I got one bite, hooked up for like maybe 1 second and the fish got off. It felt small though, didn't feel big. Might have been a smelt, might have been a perch, might have been a small striper. But yeah, I'm gonna give this another 15 minutes, see what happens. Fish on. Oh shit. Yeah. Oh man. Fish on, guys. I thought that wasn't gonna happen. Oh yeah. Look at that one. That's a nice one. Maybe 26, something like that. On the last cast though. Gee. Alright guys, I was gonna keep this, but I decided not to. I'm gonna release this thing. I'll let this one go. It's pretty fat, maybe a 6-7 pounder, probably about a 26. But either way, I'm gonna let it go. And there it goes. Good release. Oh, nice. Very nice. Hell yeah. That was so dope. That was literally on my last cast, y'all. Now I'm giving it a couple more tries, but I was literally saying, this is my last cast, I'm going home, and then boom, caught a fish. That's what I'm talking about. I was gonna take it home, but I don't know, I just didn't feel like harvesting one and cleaning it up and all that stuff right now, so I just let it go. But if you do want to keep striped bass in California, you can keep two per day. They have to be a minimum of 18 inches, and there is no slot size, so you can take home any big striper that you want, although I do not advise it, because big stripers are very old. They've been swimming around in these chemicals and sewage for a long time, and they always have parasites and worms in their belly. So yeah, the big ones they just don't taste as good as the smaller ones, so I don't recommend eating them. But if you want to, you can legally, so do what you want to. But I think I'm gonna give this another 5 minutes and get going. But that was a nice little, maybe 26-inch striped bass. I didn't measure it or weigh it, you know, it wasn't eye-popping, but at least it's something. And I did get a bite earlier and hooked into a fish and lost it, but not bad for a 1 hour session. I know I'm not being super detailed on how to read the surf, because honestly, the only way that you're going to learn to read the surf is to actually get out here. Get out here, take a look at the water, throw your line in there, and just give it a shot, because you just never know. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in for another video. Until next time, peace out.